Your edge doesn't show up in 10 trades, it shows up in 100. But most traders quit around trade 15 because the results aren't there yet. And that's the test. Can you keep executing when the math hasn't revealed itself yet? Because that's when belief in your process matters most. When you're in a drawdown. When you've followed your rules perfectly and you're still down. When every losing trade makes you question whether the edge even exists. That's not the time to quit. That's the time to trust the process. Because edges are probabilistic, and probabilities need sample size to show up. Here's the challenge. You know your edge works over 100 trades, but you're on trade 20 and you're down. You've done everything right. You've waited for your setups. You've honored your stops. You've managed your risk. And the results aren't there. Your brain starts asking questions. Maybe the edge doesn't work anymore. Maybe the market changed. Maybe you're missing something. And all of those questions come from the same place, expecting the edge to show up faster than probability allows. But probability doesn't care about your timeline. It cares about sample size. And 20 trades isn't enough. This is where most traders break. They execute well for a while. They follow the process. But when the results don't come fast enough, they start changing things. They tweak the strategy. They add filters. They skip trades because they're not confident anymore. And all of that comes from one belief. If the edge was real, it would show up by now. But that's not how probability works. A 60% win rate doesn't mean you win 6 out of the first 10. It means that over a large enough sample, you'll win around 60%. Early results can look like anything, and if you're judging your edge by early results, you'll never get to the sample size where the edge actually reveals itself. Trusting your edge when the results don't show it, yet means you keep executing even when the data doesn't support it yet. You're in the data gathering phase. You're building the sample. And the sample might start ugly. You might lose 7 of the first 10. That doesn't mean your edge is broken. It means you're experiencing variance within a small sample. The edge shows up in the aggregate. And you only get to the aggregate by continuing to execute through the noise. If you quit at trade 15, you never find out if the edge works. Because 15 trades isn't enough data. It's just noise pretending to be signal. Here's what this looks like in practice. You have a drawdown, 5, 6, 7 losses in a row. All of them were good setups. You executed perfectly, and you're down. Now you have a choice. You can trust the process and keep executing, knowing that this is part of the random distribution your edge accounts for. Or you can doubt the process and start making changes, trying to avoid the losses that are statistically inevitable. One path leads to consistency. The other leads to constant strategy hopping and never gathering enough data to know if anything works. The traders who make it through this phase are the ones who separate process from outcome in their minds. They don't measure the quality of their edge by the last 10 trades. They measure it by whether they're executing the process consistently. The results will come, but they come after the sample size, not before. And if you're not willing to execute through the early losses, the drawdowns, the streaks that test your belief, you'll never get to the point where the edge shows itself. Because the edge doesn't reveal itself to people who quit at trade 15. It reveals itself to people who execute to trade 100. This doesn't mean you ignore results forever. If you execute your process perfectly for 200 trades and you're still not profitable, then you look at the edge. Maybe it needs refinement. Maybe the market environment doesn't suit it. But that's a different conversation than what's happening at trade 20. At trade 20, you don't have enough data to make that call. You're still in the trust phase, and the trust phase requires you to execute without proof. You're executing on the belief that your edge is sound and that probability will reveal it over time. That's uncomfortable, but it's the only way to get to the sample size where you can actually evaluate whether the edge works. So if you're in a drawdown right now, if you've been executing well and the results aren't there yet, this is your moment. This is where you prove to yourself that you believe in probabilities over outcome. You don't quit because the first 20 trades didn't work out. You keep executing because you understand that 20 trades is noise, not data. The edge shows up in the aggregate, and you're building the aggregate one trade at a time, win or lose. Trust the process. Keep executing, and give probability the sample size it needs to show you what you already know, that your edge works, even when the early results don't show it yet.